MVP. You look back at the season from hell that the Fever had. None of us expected them to be in this situation. None of us expected them to be winning a very close Game 3.
Listen to this. Caitlin Clark just silenced every critic and so-called expert who counted her out. A source inside the Fever has confirmed that Clark is now fully recovered from that groin injury, 100% ready to go. And here's the wild part. The Indiana Fever are officially heading to the WNBA Finals, and Clark herself just announced she's suiting up. Yes, you heard that right, she's back, and this changes everything. The entire league just got put on notice. But here's the real dilemma. If you're Indiana's coach, do you take the gamble and play Caitlin Clark in the finals?
If she does come back, do you feel like?
I would not want to play the Indiana Fever, especially with a healthy Caitlin. I mean, that building, I got a little taste of it last year. And doing the Final Four, shows when she's on the court, when someone can really change the game in a couple moments like she can. She could be quiet for 10 minutes and then pop, pop, pop. It's 4 threes and the game's out of reach. And I think what the Fever are doing without her, that's going to help them in the future too, knowing that they can win a game when she's not on the court or she's not, at her best. So yeah, that Fever team, I would not want to play them with a healthy Caitlin.
Let's be honest, the Indiana Fever weren't supposed to be anywhere near this stage. Not this season. Not with their youth, the injuries piling up, and all the pundits preaching patience like this was just a wait your turn team. At best, analysts had them as fringe playoff material. And when Caitlin Clark went down with that groin injury, the so-called experts didn't just doubt them, they flat out buried them, closed the book, season over. But Indiana never played by that script. Instead of folding, they fought through the hardest stretch of their schedule. Aaliyah Boston turned the paint into her personal playground, dominating like she was back at South Carolina. Kelsey Mitchell lived up to her nickname, Money Mitch, knocking down clutch shots when everything was on the line. And Odyssey Sims, she became the steady veteran presence this young roster desperately needed, making hustle plays that don't always show up in a box score but absolutely tilt a playoff series. And because of that grit, that fight, and that belief, Indiana now stands in the WNBA Finals, a story already historic in its own right. But then came the announcement that sent shockwaves through the sports world. Caitlin Clark herself confirming she's suiting up for the finals. Think about how wild that is. The same media voices who said her season was finished now have to eat their words. The same critics who laughed when she limped off the court now have to watch her step back onto the biggest stage in the league. And she's not just returning, she's coming back at the exact moment where everything is on the line. This isn't just a feel-good storyline, it's a seismic shift, because with Clark on the floor, Indiana instantly becomes something entirely different. Before the injury, she wasn't just competing, she was packing arenas, breaking ratings records, and forcing every defense to stretch beyond its limits. Her shooting range pulls defenders out to the parking lot, completely rewriting how teams have to guard Indiana. Clark's return changes everything. Her vision instantly creates wide open lanes for Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, and her leadership lifts the confidence of every single player in that Fever jersey. And now it's all back. Let's be real, the haters are rattled. For months, they've been preaching that the league is bigger than Clark, that she couldn't handle the physical play, that she wasn't ready for the postseason. They were practically celebrating when she went down. But now they're stunned because Clark didn't just rehab, she announced she's suiting up for the finals. That's like dropping a live grenade right in the middle of every rival fan base. And the timing couldn't be worse for Vegas or New York, the so-called super teams. They were already sweating bullets watching Indiana storm through the playoffs without Clark. Now they're staring down a Fever squad that's fearless, battle-tested, and suddenly reloaded with the one player who completely warps the floor. See, it's never just about Clark's stat line. Even if she's only at 80%, her presence alone bends defenses. You can't ignore her. You can't double Boston without leaving Clark open. You can't overhelp on Mitchell without Clark making you pay. Every possession turns into a lose-lose situation, and there are no good answers. And then there's the mental game. Opponents thought they caught a break. They thought Clark was gone for good. Out of sight, out of mind. Indiana goes on a historic run without her, and just as Vegas and New York are preparing to deal with Boston, Mitchell, and Sims alone, boom, Clark's back. That's demoralizing before the ball even tips. But here's the real twist. It wasn't luck. Indiana was playing chess the entire time. When the Fever submitted their playoff roster, they listed just 11 players, even though the league allows 12. Everyone assumed it was a depth issue or a simple oversight. But now, now. It looks like a master plan. That open slot gave them the flexibility to activate Clark at the exact right moment. They never closed the door on her. They let the speculation build, kept the league guessing, and then dropped the bombshell when it would hit hardest. And that right there isn't just smart, it's genius. That's pure showmanship. But let's break down the rule book that actually made this comeback possible. Once the WNBA regular season ends, playoff rosters are locked. No more hardship contracts, no last-minute signings. Whoever you list is who you ride with. But here's the loophole. Players already under contract who are on the inactive list, whether from injury, suspension, or maternity leave, can still be reactivated if a slot opens up, or if a team deliberately leaves one spot unfilled. And that's exactly the card Indiana played. Clark wasn't some outsider they picked up off the street. She was on that roster the entire time, waiting in the shadows. Now, the Fever are cashing in on that gamble in the biggest way possible. Of course, there's risk here. Groin injuries are brutal. They linger, they flare up, they test conditioning. Indiana knows they're playing with fire by throwing her back into action. But here's the reality. Even if she's only at 70 or 80%, Clark's presence alone changes everything. Defenses still have to respect her. You could put her out there on one leg and opponents would guard her from 25 feet. That gravity by itself is worth the risk. And don't think for a second this was just Indiana's call. The league office absolutely has its fingerprints on this, because the WNBA knows exactly what Clark in the finals means. Ratings, revenue, and relevance at a level they've never seen before. This isn't just a basketball decision, it's a business move. And from a business standpoint, Caitlin Clark's return is gold. The fans know it too. Social media is exploding. Clips of her shooting around are pulling millions of views. Her announcement alone got more traction than half the actual playoff games combined. Love her or hate her, Caitlin Clark is the headline, and in a league desperate to stay in the national conversation, that's priceless. But let's not let the WNBA itself completely off the hook. The fact that praising Clark has already gotten coaches fined, or even rumored to have cost people their jobs, says a lot about the fragile egos in play. Right now, Clark is bigger than the WNBA, and that reality makes plenty of people very uncomfortable. Clark's return in the finals doesn't just shine the spotlight on her, it throws the league's insecurities right back into focus. But here's the thing, the Fever aren't interested in politics, they're interested in banners. And with Clark back, their ceiling just exploded. Aaliyah Boston gets more space to own the paint. Kelsey Mitchell finally has freedom to breathe on the perimeter. Odyssey Sims doesn't have to carry as heavy a load. And role players like Sophie Cunningham suddenly become far more dangerous because defenses can't possibly cover everybody. That's exactly why opponents are panicking. Indiana already clawed its way to the finals without Clark, and now they're reloading with the single most impactful player in women's basketball. That's not just intimidating, it's borderline unfair. And the critics? They're officially out of excuses. For months, they called Clark overhyped, said she wasn't built for the pros. Yet here she is, suiting up in the finals in just her second year, not sitting on the sidelines, not hiding behind a bench role, but stepping in to alter the entire series. It's poetic. The same voices who downplayed her influence now have to watch her take center stage on the league's biggest platform. Fever fans haven't forgotten, and the receipts are endless. What makes this even more shocking isn't just her return, it's the timing. Finals basketball isn't about pretty numbers or highlight reels, it's about handling the weight of the moment. And let's be real, Clark's been built for that since Iowa. Pressure, packed arenas, national cameras, that's just another day at the office for her. And when you drop a player like that into the finals, you're not just adding a shooter or a passer, you're adding gravity. Every defender has to check where she is. Every coach has to redraw their game plan. Every fan has to react the moment she steps on the floor. That changes the entire atmosphere before she even takes a shot. Suddenly, Vegas and New York have gone from confident to paranoid overnight. And Indiana's core, they're thriving. Boston, who's already bullying defenders in the post, now gets single coverage instead of constant double teams. Mitchell finally has room to cook on the perimeter. And Sims, she can save her energy for disruption instead of carrying the offense. This isn't just a boost, it's a complete shift in power. That's the real power of Clark's return. Nobody's expecting her to play 35 minutes and drop 40 points. That's not the point. What matters is that even in limited minutes, 15-20 at most, she completely changes the equation. Just by being on the floor, even standing in the corner, she forces defenses to shift and adjust. That's why her comeback feels less like basketball and more like a TV script, because it practically is. The WNBA is buzzing. Finals without Clark Clark? A nice storyline. Finals with Clark? A full-blown national event. Networks are clearing primetime slots. Broadcasters are cooking up highlight packages. And casual fans who ignored the regular season are suddenly tuning in just to see how this unfolds. And here's what really eats at the haters. Her return is bigger than them. They're already lining up their excuses. She's overrated. She won't be 100%. She'll mess up team chemistry. But excuses don't matter when the scoreboard tells the story. If Clark makes just a handful of impact plays in the finals, the entire narrative flips. Suddenly, those same critics are forced to explain how the overhyped player just helped Indiana go toe-to-toe with the league's best. Of course, there's risk. If Clark looks rusty, critics will pounce. If she aggravates the injury, the backlash will be brutal. That's why this decision takes guts. Indiana could have played it safe, protected her for next year, and nobody would have blamed them. Instead, they chose belief over caution, and that's what shows how far this franchise has come. Not long ago, the Fever were the league's punchline. 5-win seasons, empty arenas, wasted draft picks. That era is gone. This version of Indiana is fearless, bold, willing to bet big on greatness. Bringing Clark back isn't desperation, it's conviction. They believe they belong, and they believe Clark makes them dangerous. And honestly, they might be right. Vegas has already shown cracks this postseason. New York still hasn't fully figured out its chemistry. Neither super team looks untouchable. Add Clark into Indiana's fight, and suddenly those Giants don't look so mighty anymore. And that's where the conversation shifts to something bigger. Legacy. If Caitlin Clark steps onto that finals court, even without dominating, the moment instantly cements itself as one of the most iconic in WNBA history. Think about it. In just her second year, already battling through injuries, already carrying an entire franchise, and now making a dramatic return on the league's biggest stage. That's the kind of storyline that turns into legend. Fans won't forget it. Kids will mimic it on driveways across the country, and the league itself will be defined by it. And here's the wild part. Clark didn't even need this to solidify her reputation. She was already the face of the league. She was already breaking records, moving jerseys, and shattering ratings. This comeback isn't about publicity. It's about sending a message. She's not just hype. She's here to fight, to win, to rewrite the narrative of a franchise everyone dismissed. That's why her critics are rattled. The comeback they swore would never happen is unfolding right in front of their eyes. And the best part? There's absolutely nothing they can do to stop it.